Hola! It's Kyle talking about the Mexican beach resort towns of Cabo San Lucas and Puerto Vallarta. These are two of the most popular tourist destinations in Mexico, and in this video, I'm going to go over some information on each, as well as comparing and contrasting the two locations. And hopefully, I can provide some useful information to people that are interested in visiting one or the other, but aren't quite sure which one is better suited for them. Cabo San Lucas and Puerto Vallarta are often compared to each other, and there are some similarities between the two. There are certain experiences that are going to be kind of the same at both, and I'm going to go over some of the similarities first, and then after that, go over what makes each one unique. The most obvious similarity between the two is that they are both heavily dependent on tourism and make a lot of concessions to visitors. They're both busiest during the winter and then also during the U.S. spring break months of March and April. And both are going to be pretty busy during this time. But for a lot of folks, that's part of the draw. They specifically want to go down there when it is busier, so the bars and nightclubs are more hopping, there's more people about, and there's just much more of a party atmosphere. But if you do want to get a little peace and quiet on your vacation, whichever one you go to, you'll have plenty of opportunity to get away from the crowds if you want to. But yeah, you'll be able to party pretty hard in either one of the cities if you want to. It's hard to say which one has more of a party scene, but there are plenty of bars and nightclubs in both. Both have a lot of really good restaurants, some good seafood. Both have some good shopping opportunities. They got the tacky souvenir shops so you can pick up some Mexican kits, and they got the spots you can get some local arts and crafts kind of stuff. They both have the really upscale areas too, where you can spend some serious cash if you want to. They also both have the typical kind of water activities you can do out in the ocean. You can ride jet skis or ride the banana boat or go parasailing, or they got the pirate party boat kind of thing. So, typical water activities. And you won't have to worry about speaking Spanish either, because everybody speaks English in both, so you won't have any problem communicating while you're down there. They also both have a lot of people trying to sell you timeshares, and they can get kind of annoying, but after a while, it's not that big of a deal. You just keep saying no gracias over and over again. But we actually did go to one of the timeshare presentations while we were in Cabo, and we knew what we were getting ourselves into. It wasn't like we were caught off guard by how horrible this thing was, but we got a pretty good offer to do it, so we did it. We got 2 really good bottles of tequila, 2 tickets on a sunset cruise with a buffet and an open bar, and also coupons to go to a pretty nice restaurant. So we knew what we were getting ourselves into. We knew it would take a lot longer than the 1-hour presentation they promised, but it really wasn't that bad. It took about 3 hours total, but the first hour was a breakfast buffet. The food was pretty good, so we're not going to complain about that. It was open bar the entire presentation because they want you drunk. Drunk people make really stupid decisions about timeshares. They showed us around the property, and that wasn't that big of a deal. It's kind of cool to see the actual property. The last part of it was where it gets really annoying. They just really hound you over and over again. So be prepared to say no, 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 over and over again if you want to do the timeshare presentation. We don't regret doing it. We wouldn't do it again, but we didn't regret doing it. But when you're down in either Cabo or Vallarta, just be prepared to say no a bunch of times to the timeshare people. So those are some of the similarities between Cabo and Vallarta, but now I'm going to go over some of the differences that makes each one unique. The number one difference between the two is the climate. They're both nice and warm, both a great way to escape the cold during the winter, but where they differ is that Cabo San Lucas is in a desert. Once you leave the city, it's just open desert. It's dirt and exposed rock and cacti and no trees anywhere. So it's kind of like visiting Arizona or Las Vegas in the wintertime. Puerto Vallarta is in humid tropical rainforest, so once you leave the city, it's jungle. It's much more like the Caribbean, so that's a personal preference of what type of climate you like, but why that really matters is that Cabo San Lucas is nice every day of the year. It's going to be 80 degrees with clear skies every day of the year. It's kind of a warmer version of the California coastal climate where it's just always pleasant. Vallarta is going to be pretty unbearable during the summer and fall. Think kind of like visiting New Orleans in the summer, but worse. So that's probably not somewhere you're going to want to be. And most people visit these Mexican beach resorts in the wintertime when they're both nice. But if you are planning on visiting during the summer or fall, you might want to consider Cabo because the weather will be a lot nicer. The second biggest difference between the two is that even though both are heavily dependent on tourism, the vast majority of visitors to Cabo are either Americans or Canadians, whereas a good chunk of the visitors to Vallarta are people from other parts of Mexico. So everything there isn't completely catered to gringos. There was a nice plaza right downtown. There was a mariachi comedy show going on. It was entirely in Spanish. I don't speak much Spanish, but I can kind of just get the gist of what was going on. It was pretty funny. Whereas in Cabo, everything is geared towards Americans and Canadians, specifically Californians. So as a result, Cabo is a little more expensive as well. So with most of the people down there being Americans and Californians have the most disposable income of anybody in the U.S., things were a little bit more expensive there and really not much cheaper than visiting a beach town in the U.S. Vallarta was a little bit cheaper with, Mexico being a pretty poor country. The visitors don't have as much money to spend, so things were a little bit less expensive there. But the flight to Cabo was cheaper than the flight to Vallarta, so your overall cost of the trip might not really be much difference, but the time you spend in Vallarta will be a little bit cheaper than the time you spend in Cabo. Another major difference between the two is that Puerto Vallarta is a real city. And not that Cabo San Lucas isn't a real city, it's that there's a lot more to Vallarta than just a tourist area. When you leave the tourist area in Cabo San Lucas, there's pretty much nothing else out there. It's a pretty small city that's almost entirely geared to tourists. Vallarta, being much larger, has a lot more going on than just the tourist stuff. But with that comes some of the problems with cities too. So there are some ghettos there are some, high crime areas, there are some drug gangs. But as long as you stay in the main tourist area, you're not going to have any issues. There have been some high profile incidents in the tourist area in Vallarta, but they're no more common than things that happen in the main areas in American cities. And I always find it kind of funny when Americans talk about, they complain about the crime in other countries. I mean, we live in the most dangerous developed nation on earth, and we're going to complain about crime in other cities. But you're no more likely to be a victim of crime in Vallarta than you are anywhere in the U.S. And Cabo is a lot safer than most parts of the U.S. So I wouldn't worry too much about crime unless you go venturing off into the ghetto of Vallarta. Which why would you be doing that? You visit Washington D.C., you're not going to the ghetto. You visit Miami, you're not going to the ghetto. And if you visit Vallarta, why would you be going to the ghetto? But Vallarta, again, with it being more of a kind of a real authentic city, there's a more historic district there. Got the old cathedral right downtown. You have a lot more old architecture going on. There really isn't much history or any kind of old architecture in Cabo. So that is a big difference between the two. And along with that, there's much more of an art scene in Puerto Vallarta. There's a lot of cool art galleries. Right along the waterfront, there's a lot of really cool sculptures, just some wonderfully creepy statues. I really like the art style of some of that stuff along the waterfront. We went to a couple of the local Indian art galleries, and we bought some stuff like this. I mean, this is just some beautiful stuff. There's some really intricate beadwork. I think the local group is called Huichol. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but this is just really, really pretty kind of stuff. So if you're into the art scene, you're into the more cultural kind of stuff, there's a lot more of that in Vallarta than Cabo. Another plus for Vallarta is that there's a lot more street food there. I was surprised to see there really isn't that much street food in Cabo. I'm not really sure why, but I enjoyed a lot of street food while I was in Vallarta. My wife wasn't able to enjoy it because she has kind of a weaker digestive system, so if you're like that, then you probably won't be able to enjoy it. But I pounded some street tacos while I was in Vallarta. But the flip side of that is that the sit-down restaurant scene is much better in Cabo. A lot of nice restaurants, a lot of mid-level restaurants, and between the two, the best restaurant we went to was a place called Tacos Gus in Cabo. Man, this place was really good. I've eaten a lot of tacos in my life, and without a doubt, Tacos Gus is the best place I've ever been to. Really, really good. So the sit-down restaurant scene is a lot better in Cabo, but the street food scene is a lot better in Vallarta. Another difference is that there's really only one major beach in Vallarta, and it's really crowded. There's a lot of restaurants and bars that line it, but there's also a lot of people on the beach. Cabo does have a really popular beach that's crowded as well, but the difference is that on the other side of downtown, there are a couple of beaches that are much less visited. There are no restaurants or bars along it, so it's just less crowded. You won't have the whole beach to yourself, it won't be empty, but they are a lot less crowded than the main beach in Vallarta. But where Vallarta makes up for it is that there are 3 small coves you can get to by boat. They're not islands, but because there are no roads that lead to them, they're effectively islands because you have to use a boat to get there. There are Las Animas, Camisto, and Yalapa. And each one's just kind of a little stretch of sand. And Yalapa has the most stuff on it, and Las Animas second, and then there's the least amount of stuff on Camisto. But none of them are really that busy. They're all pretty small. So you hop on this little boat. Takes about 15 minutes to get to the first one, maybe 30 minutes to get to the last one. And it was just a really cool time. The boat's supposed to leave at 10. It's probably not going to leave at 10 because, again, with no roads leaving there, these boats are the only lifeline to the mainland they have. So, regular stuff's getting shipped out there. So we were waiting on a guy that was bringing Cokes, another guy was bringing ice, and somebody had toilet paper and cleaning stuff. So you just have to wait until the boat's loaded up before you can go. But once we got there, it was really cool. We got off on the first stop, which is Las Animas, and nobody else on the boat got off. So we were the only people there. We got there about 10:45 or so, and nobody was there. The next boat didn't come until 11:30, and nobody got off on that one either. So we had the whole little cove to ourselves for like an hour and a half. Really cool. And there were several restaurants out in front of it, and so we were at one of them just sitting on a chair. And because we were the only people there, the guy that was working there, his name was Fausto, he was just attending to us. It was like our own private guy. And a little boat came up, and the fisherman had one Pacific red snapper. And, Fausto comes up and says, hey, our guy caught just one fish. If you want it, we'll make it up for you. If you don't want it, we'll put it on ice and somebody else will get it. We're like, no, we want it. And so it was like the best seafood we've ever had in our lives. So that was just a really good time. And that was the highlight of our trip to Vallarta, was to go to these little coves. And we went back because it was just such a good time. So if you are going to go to Vallarta, make sure you do take the time to go on one of these little boat rides to get these little coves. It's just a really cool experience. Both Cabo and Vallarta will give you plenty of opportunities to do more adventurous stuff outside the city. Once you leave Cabo, you can do more desert type stuff with, dune buggy tours, desert safari kind of stuff. There's a lot more hiking opportunities in the mountains just north of the city. And Vallarta, with it being tropical rainforest, you have zip line tours through the canopy, you have jeep tours through the rainforest. So if you want to get extreme, you can do that at either one of them. And my wife and I didn't do any of this stuff when we were there. So, when we go down to tropical places, we're not looking to get extreme, but, you can if you want to. And if you're hanging out in the rainforest around Puerto Vallarta, that's where they filmed the movie Predator. So if you get kidnapped with the drug cartels, don't worry, just call on this guy. So those are just some of the major differences between Cabo San Lucas and Puerto Vallarta. And which one is more suited to you is, of course, dependent on your own personal preferences. Whether you prefer the Caribbean-style humid tropical climate, or you prefer the Las Vegas in the spring kind of desert climate. If you're more interested in the arts and culture and history and seeing a more traditional Mexican city, then Puerto Vallarta is more suited to you. If you're more interested in just going down there and partying and visiting a foreign country but not feeling like you're somewhere that's foreign, then Cabo San Lucas is probably more suited to you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know it was alright. And please subscribe to my channel if you're interested in stuff like this. I'm posting videos about travel, a lot of stuff about road tripping across the US, and just some nerdy stuff for people that like geography. So yeah, thanks for watching. Geography King signing out, and about to go see if Sammy Hagar is still alive.